Alright, hi everybody, this is A7X Fan Ben, and I'm making this video as a suggested video from one of my recent videos actually. And you can see JP Self 13 wrote, I would love to get some input on strategies for assaulting islands with forts. We have failed many times. So he goes on to say that Paradis de la Mer is one of the forts that they usually have trouble with. I'm going to make this video about forts in general. But Paradis, just kind of as a side note, I wouldn't feel too bad about failing against Paradis because it is overpowered, extremely overpowered. WizKids should have made it cost 6, 7, or 8 gold. The fact that at least one other fort costs 5 and Paradis is only 4, it's not even the most expensive fort, so I wouldn't feel too bad about it. The ability is extremely ridiculous. The first time this fort is shot at, each turn roll a d6. The result is the number of times this fort must be hit that turn before any of its cannons can be eliminated. So you could roll a 5, and then the next turn you could roll a 6, and like it just goes on and on. So it's a defensive ability that's really overpowered and shouldn't have been in the game. And it also has good cannons, so you can see 2 Ls, 3 Ls, and then a 4 L for just 4 gold. So the French really got a boon there. So I'm going to go over a few of the abilities that I like to use. The first one is really basic. It's just simply forts cannot hit this ship. So this is a ship ability that showed up only on a handful of ships. So if you don't have one of these in your collection, you could try to get a hold of them. And a bunch of these are actually decent combat ships too. So they actually have good cannons. So if you park one of these next to a fort, the fort can't do anything about it, and then you can just pound away from there. So the Boston is a good one. That one has SL speed from Revolution. El San Salvador is a pretty good one. This one has 2S cannons, both of them also SL speed. And the Greyhound is small, but she does have great speed and a good cannon, so still an option, just pretty fragile. Orient is pretty basic, not too exciting, not as good as the other ones. And then the Treasure is one of the better ones. This one has SS speed and then 3 2S cannons. And then the Windjammer is the original one. This was like a preview in Spanish Main because forts weren't even in that set. And this one has good speed. It's only 9 points, and you've got some good cannons. So if you get at least one of these, or maybe even 2, and get it next to Paradis, you'll be able to eventually roll like a 1 or a 2 and then start damaging it. And preferably you'll have other firepower as well. So maybe you'll have the Windjammer and the Treasure maybe in a pirate fleet, or you could have, in an American fleet, you could have maybe the Boston, and then you could team it up with like the Black Watch, which has really accurate cannons, and then you could use both, and you'd have 8 cannons, and one of the 2 ships can't be hit by the fort. So that's the most basic ability to take on forts with, although, like I said, there's not many ships that have it, and it's not on crew. So, and letter of mark is a UT, actually, that says forts cannot fire on the ship unless the ship fires on them first, but that's a niche solution. So the next one is also a ship ability that's more common, though, so you might be more likely to use this. It's called L-range cannons cannot hit this ship. So this is a really good defensive ability in general. It's also referred to as L immunity because you're immune to L-range cannons. This one has a host of decent ships. A lot of them aren't as good gunships as the ones that have the forts can't hit the ship ability. But something like the Duke is pretty good. You've got SL speed, solid cannons, and then that nice defensive ability. And the reason I bring this up specifically is because just as L-range cannons in general, so those refer to L-range cannons on a ship or a fort. And if I go back to the forts page, you can see that almost all fort cannons are L-range. Only Fortaleza Dorada, which actually has that ability, and the Devil's Maw down here, those are the only forts with S-range cannons. All the other ones you can see are L-range cannons, including Paradis de la Mer, which only has L-range cannons. So if you use a ship with this ability against Paradis, you essentially have the same ability as the forts cannot hit this ship. If the fort has only L-range guns and you can't be hit by those, you're immune to the fort in general. So, and yeah, there is, ironically, a fort with this ability too, but in the case of Paradis, some of these are okay ships. A lot of them are not too great. The Swiftsure is kind of like the Greyhound, but just a few points more expensive. The Westminster is okay. Ivory Star is alright. Jarvis, this is one I want to mention specifically, and I know a lot of people play the Americans. And the Jarvis is one of my favorite ships because she's good in every category, really. You've got the speed, you've got good cannons, and L-range cannons cannot hit this ship. One thing I love to do, and they're from the same set, they're both three-masted schooners from the same set, both American, so they're like sister ships. You could pair the Boston with the Jarvis, and then the Boston can't be hit by forts in general, so that's great. And then the Jarvis is even better cargo and cannons, and can't be hit by long-range guns. So if you team these up against Paradis or any fort, really, you're probably going to come out on top because the fort can't really do much against them. One thing I will warn against, though, is being too reliant on abilities. You still want to have, pure massed firepower and some durability near the fort, because usually an opponent's going to protect their fort and/or send ships to defend it if they can afford to. So you might be dealing with more than just the fort, and once they realize you're trying to take it out. So if you can dedicate more than one or two ships, regardless of abilities, to assaulting the fort, that would be great. So, and a few of these, Proud Tortoise has a good cannon. San Leandro's alright. A lot of these are kind of like small ships or better at gold running. The Sea Fox has a couple 2L guns. The Silverback is alright. She's got a couple 2S guns. These are all the L-immune ships in the game, basically. The Snipe is better as a flotilla tug. But the Tiger's Eye is one of the best. She's got great speed, good enough cannons, and that ability. That's better as a hybrid than a fort wrecker, but you get the idea. So a pretty good one there as well. The USS Georgetown is pretty solid. The Jarvis is better for a point more. You get better speed and cargo, but the Georgetown has good cannons too. So that's another solution. Those are the two main abilities I would recommend for going up against forts, which means you might have to acquire some of these for your collection. And just in general, though, in terms of forts as well, you want to get the first shot against it. So something like Paradis, if this thing hits your ships before you can at least attempt to hit it, you're going to be in big trouble right away. So you want to come in with ideally at least two ships, both with captains and both with helmsmen probably, so you can stay out of range and then attack on the same turn. Sometimes you gotta brute force a fort out of the game. So to do that, you wanna get the first shot with multiple ships all on the same turn. So try to hit it with two ships or even three or four, depending on the size of the ship and what you roll against Paradis. If you roll a 6, you might need 3 or 4 ships to really smash it and make it abandoned or try to destroy it in one turn. So, but yeah, those two abilities are the best against forts in general. There is a +1 to cannon rolls against forts within your S of her ability, but it's not very common and it's not really that effective. This is kind of a niche option. So maybe you could put Carl Smith, he's American, you could put him on the Jarvis of the Boston, for example. The ships that have this are actually pretty good gunships, so that is a plus at least. The Cutlass, +1 to forts against cannon rolls against forts with an S of her. She has good speed and very good cannons as well, so that's an option. You could put Dragut on the Tiger's Eye, for example. LaPlante. HMS Oxford is one of the best English gunships in the game, so this one is a good fort wrecker. And then there's a few others, but nothing too special. So, and then as a niche one, I did look in the pirate code. Paradis gets ignored by Neptune's Trident. This is a unique treasure that says you basically get a giant tidal wave attack, and up to 2 master cannons of every ship and fort in the path of the wave are eliminated. So if you use this against Paradis, the roll is irrelevant, and it loses 2 flags no matter what. So that's one way to take out that defense ability. And another one would be re-rolling, so you could try to have a re-roller, and then I think that would still apply at least, or you could house rule it if it doesn't, just to make Paradis less overpowered. Have the re-roll potentially apply to the defensive die roll. But that's pretty much what I think of how to take out forts. Some niche abilities, but if you don't have them, it's mostly just brute force and hitting them with multiple ships on the same turn at the same time with captains, and then and also just prevention. So trying to knock out some of their gold runners before they can get gold home, so they delay the building of the fort, for example. So I hope you liked the video, and I'll definitely be back with more soon. I'm really looking forward to making more videos, and I like the suggestions. So keep them coming, and I'll be back soon. Thanks for watching.